everybody. What's going on? Welcome to another Hardscape Hotline, Auman Landscape Live.
You haven't been here for a few weeks.
It's been a few weeks?
You missed the last two.
I missed last two. Last week, I was sledding in Montana. There goes somebody jogging by.
John Henry sent me a video. We're not the only wild parents out there. His little baby was not going to bed till like 9:45.
Yeah. Oh, golly. Where are the parents? That's what I want to know. But yeah, we've got, look at the glare. We're back to that glare issue on.
I can fix that.
Contractor.
Watch this.
But anyways, welcome YouTube, Instagram Live here, everybody. What's going on? I'm going to wave you off when it's on the R at the moment, Britt. Keep going a little farther. Right there kills it, which is the whole freaking window. Okay. So yeah, that sucks. Everybody, what's going on? We're here to just chat and talk business. Watching from Scotland. What's up, Robbie Murray 28? That's really cool. Scotland, man, that's amazing. I'd like to get there someday. All those areas would be super cool. We are rocking and rolling. Guys are out today, turning revenue. Hallelujah. Sutton, what's going on, man? We've had a good winter, really. I guess all things considered, had a bunch of commercial. I say a bunch, but commercial work going here over the winter. That's been good, keeping some income rolling. Thank the Lord. Caballeros, hello, means gentlemen in Spanish, just so you know. J&B, what's going on there? The great state, the great show from the great show me state. Hotters, what's going on? But yeah, so we're rocking and rolling, and we're pretty much hammered down from here out, and still trying to keep in mind the concept of not bidding and pricing things out of fear. And had an interesting conversation with someone on Instagram talking about Coops. What's up? Talking about trying to make what's up, Mr. Pletzer? I'm a hardscaper on YouTube. But trying to talking about, they were worried about the economy or whatever, and then they kind of redressed that with they're actually just more worried about not hitting a particular sales goal. And I understand that. Like I get that. I think it's just really important that we may not hit sales goals this year at all. We'll see. I don't know. Horning, what's up? We'll see. I don't know. We're hitting it hard. Spent the last couple of days on the phone and booking up work, and the phone is ringing. So it's been good, but just try not to be pricing stuff out of fear right now of what you don't know or can't control at the moment. So chances are you've got a book of business from any amount of time being in business, right? And you can always dial. I think Fullerton was the one that said it, but he was, talking about, you have, being employed versus, being self-employed. And the way he looked at it was like, well, I have 40, depending on how long you've been in business, a year or 6 months or whatever, you have that book of, if you're keeping a good CRM, which I would highly recommend, you do keep a log of like everyone you've ever talked to, maybe categorize them in certain categories of what they've called for, and reach back out to them. And that's also part of what makes you a sellable business as well, is when you have this list of contacts that you could say, these folks called about a leaf cleanup, these folks called about landscaping, these folks called about paver work or whatever. And you build a whole CRM like in LMN, a software we use, Landscape Management Network. Go lmn.com, Brit / I don't even know, promo code though, Auman, gets you a month off.
Auman free 23 or something.
Oh God,
like that.
Really? We did some horrible thing
I didn't pick it, they picked it.
I swear. Just be sure.
But you get a month free.
Just be sure. You mentioned Auman if you sign up. But anyways, it's a great budgeting software. It helps you figures out what you should be charging, what you should be doing, all that. It's totally the way to go. So we're here to talk. If you got any questions, thoughts, concerns, things you want to share, wins, maybe losses. Something we're doing on the Kid Contractor Podcast, by the way, is if you want to, if you have a nonprofit that you'd like to promote, or of someone that has a nonprofit, a not-for-profit charitable organization, not a landscape company that's not profitable at the moment. I understand that sentiment, however.
Which is funny.
It's funny. I ran one for years. We're allowing advertising slots in, and we'll run ads for that nonprofit in the Kid Contractor Podcast. So if that's something I'm live in Brittany. That's why. I thought the questions were really low and slow. We're live on Brittany's platform. Let's jump ship. Folks, we're going over to Auman Landscape here. My apologies. Britt asked me to do one thing this morning, and what I do, I screwed it up. Here we go.
We'll be back.
Goodbye. We'll be back. We're going over to Auman Landscape.
Cool.
That was so smooth of me. So YouTube, what's going on?
Sorry.
Yeah, so I got tasked with one thing, and I totally blew that. I thought, like, man, there's no business questions at all or anything. It's kind of weird. Like, man.
People have never seen me go live.
We're swept. Yeah, right. Yeah, really. Everybody's probably like, what the hell? But anyways, YouTube, for those of you out there, hello again. And we're here hanging out. Is the volume good on that? Because it's not bumping up or anything there. Hey, Instagram Live. So what's up, Instagram? Again, hi. We're live on Instagram at Auman Landscape and on Auman Landscape YouTube channel. We tried going live on TikTok before. It's not panned out real well. So Coops, thanks again for joining us. Ditch Itch. There was a fellow from Scotland earlier, J&B again. Yeah, so I had one job. So Britt obviously has access to both accounts on her phone, and she, John Henry, hi. And she asked me to go ahead and set up to go live on Instagram. So, yeah, the real fans are on Britt's channel. Well, that's the only fans, I think, is what you're referring to maybe there. I don't know. No? Okay. Well, but here we are. Prime, how you doing? And Ben Bobcat, what's going on? So I guess a lot of you have heard me repeat. I'm going to have to repeat myself a little bit. Horn, how you doing? We're actually just talking about about selling for the year, and we might all not hit.
Someone is cutting in a patio right now with their phone set on the seawall.
Hey, that's so cool. Weaver Landscaping. Hey, that's so rad. Spring's about here. March. It's what, March 2nd here, Britt, and here in Ohio. Anyways, I don't know what the date is where you're at. Jason Zulo,
it's the time change that
landscaper out there. I don't know. That's a pretty tall order. I don't know if he's the saltiest, but check out Zulo. They do some beautiful work there. But yeah, that's kind of funny. They're doing that. So, but we were talking about, making sure we're not selling things out of fear at the moment, trying to make sure we're holding firm on our pricing. And that's why it's important to know your numbers, right? That's the cliche thing, but it's the damn truth. Like, you've got to know where you're at. So we use LMN, right? We use LMN. Sitting in my high school class right now. Teach me something better. Well, we might. We'll see what we get into. Trent Case. What high school?
This is my high school. I shouldn't have phones.
They get on stuff like this. But why we need to know what we need to charge and why we need to know what our bare bones costs are, so that if things get really wild and weird and we really have to cut prices or something like that, which I don't think is going to happen, by the way. Now, granted, we're a business that's been building a book of business now for 23 years. But regardless, even if you've been building a business for 6 months or 2 years or whatever, you should be your customer acquisition costs. Yes, your CAC, your CAC. As I was listening to a podcast this morning, the All In podcast, which I really enjoy that one. Heavy business talk, a lot of venture capital. They're all venture capital guys, but I really have enjoyed it. It's been an interesting talk. But that's why we use LMN. Go LMN.com, promo code Auman or something like that. Might get you a month off, whatever. Flint.
I have some questions.
There are questions. Okay, yeah. So let's go there. But so long story short, you need to know what your costs are, so you know what you need to charge. So I know it's the tired old phrase of knowing your numbers, but it is as bedrock fundamental of business as that can be.
What do you think? What do you think it means that some people are like super concerned about the economy and like terrified? Personality.
Yeah. Just you cannot,
because some people are just like,
or you're over leveraged and you're worried they might not make payments. I don't know. I
know people on both ends of the spectrum.
You watch too much news, maybe. I don't know. Like, so what I try to say is, but then also don't be naive. There's somewhere in the middle, right? Don't be naive and don't be blind, but also don't live in fear of what the news is telling you all the time. Build up a CRM, a customer resource manager or whatever, which is you build up a list of names and numbers. And this person called for this, and this person called for this, and this person called for this, and you put them all in those categories, and you just build that up. And then should things get weird, you can call them up in a year from now or 6 months. Beal, what's up? and you say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, that's the thing with a down economy. People might actually have to freaking sell work again, which is something nobody's used to doing over the last 10, 15 years, actually going out and hustling. The phone rings. We haven't had to work for business hardly at all. I think the established guys are going to be okay because they just are hopefully not resting on your reputation. But going from there, we got a lot of questions. Let's get caught up on questions here.
Okay. Are we making any changes to our service offerings for this year?
Drew bought the first badge. Thank you. Why, thank you, Drew. I'm not sure what happens then or how much money that is or whatever, but thank you. I appreciate that. It's flattering. It really is. Continue.
What changes to service offerings are we making this year?
Ooh, good question. Are we really making it simple?
I think we're
trying to keep things simple.
I think we've hit a good groove. We've eliminated a lot of the stuff that we needed to. Like we don't do a lot of pond installs anymore, really, and we can do them. It's just we don't need to.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Some good questions on YouTube there.
I know. I'm working through them.
Okay. So but yeah, just trying to keep things simple, and we're not adding anything. We talked with a client about a pool the other day, but we kind of vetted the price out over the phone on that one and kind of fixed that. And then other than that, like I talked myself out of going and looking at retaining wall the other day that I knew they were price shopping hard. And the guy was very open about that. And I was okay. And I said, I don't think this is the job for us. Referred him to somebody else. And actually, no, I didn't even do that to them because I didn't want this person to get their wheels run off either. Continue, please.
Okay. Do we have an exit strategy?
Yes and no. I mean, this building is part of the exit strategy, right? And we have other things going on that would be like the real estate is sellable because the selling a landscape business can be very challenging. And generally what you end up selling is the assets, what contracted work you have. But even then you're going to take a beating on that to an extent because it's just going to be a multiple of profits or maybe revenue if you're lucky.
Like unless you do a lot of service, I think it's very hard to sell an actual sold
design build companies are tough. Yeah, but I mean it's doable.
And but you can sell your phone number.
Yeah, I mean there's ways out of it that you craft it. You stay on board for a couple of years, keep things rolling. There's ways to do it. So true exit strategy, no, but yes, at the same time, like we have we're going to get more and more serious about that. But this building is one of our thoughts of exit strategy in 20 or 30 years.
But I don't really know when I'll stop. When we'll stop working.
Yeah, I imagine we'll be here in this building for a long time, but who knows what the future holds. $2.5 million is what I'll liquidate it right now for folks. 2.5. So
2.5. That number changes all the time.
It was 1.5. Yeah, now it's 2.5. I love it here. I love this place. So yeah, I don't want to leave. But I'll let it go for the barn burning price of $2.5 million American in 2020.
When does your season start?
We try not to let it shut down, but generally mid-February, we're aiming for that. That's our kind of thing here. Oh. Prince Edward Island. Hello. That's awesome. Back in high school there.
Super important to know your customer acquisition cost. Thanks for doing this. Someone else is in a loader while they're watching.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Which is cool. I don't understand how you say you're going to grow your business to 1.5 and work 40-hour weeks.
Well, I is that directed at us? I don't know. Well, we probably won't work 40-hour. Well, what are you talking about? The cruise or like us personally? Because we've never worked 40-hour weeks. That's never really been a thing. But we haven't also worked insane. I mean, there's years where we worked last year we worked insane hours, whatever. Yeah, I don't know what directions that's directed. I think that can be done. I mean, it's only 50% more. So we can't push our guys 50% more. So we'd have to add people. But really the power of all that crap is in delegation and hiring the people to make sure it happens and not taking on tasks you shouldn't be doing, period.
Well, it's hiring smart,
right?
The right people for the right place and not just hiring anyone that walks off the street. The other part of that is equipment. So,
yeah,
if you're efficient with your equipment and you're making your guys more efficient by buying things or, name it, anything. I don't know, buying whatever it is that your crew needs.
I actually didn't know where you're going with that. Buggies, shovels, tilt rotators, whatever.
Then, you get there that way. And then the other thing is you don't necessarily need a lot more customers. What you can do is all the upsells on all of your projects. And all your past projects. So I don't think it would be hard to grow another $500,000. I really don't.
Especially if it's all we had to focus on. Instead
like
of
if we weren't doing this
lives,
today,
I'd be on the phone selling work. And if we weren't, so I mean, that's a big part of it too. It's like, well, we have multiple ventures going at the moment. But I think we could easily grow the landscaping company.
What we do at every moment of the day is a decision. We're either choosing this or the
Right.
landscape company. And that's really challenging a lot of times.
Yeah.
And we just try to balance it the best that we can. So I don't know. There you go. That was about, okay. How do I estimate a job that I've never done before? I was asked to bid a large format block retaining wall, 150 feet long, 2 feet tall on one end to 8 feet tall on the other.
You bid it liberally. You kind of figure a handful of things like, A, it's going to go worse than you imagine, most likely, or not as well as you imagine, or not as fast as you imagine. You plan on renting all the equipment you would need to do that job effectively. So large format walls, you're going to want to rent like a 6-ton excavator minimum to do that job. You want to figure out how to get rid of all your spoils on site or off site, how you're going to make that happen. Make sure your engineering is good because an 8-foot tall wall is pretty serious. And then you just want to be realistic with what you think it's going to take. What I know we could do that job in time wise is not the same as you, and our overhead is not the same, most likely, or similar. So it's really just breaking it down. Okay, I think we can get, and just breaking it down on paper and seeing how realistic
We should do this in the conference room.
Yeah, sure. But I think we can get excavation done for that whole wall in the equivalency of 2 days or whatever. And I think we can get the base course of that set in 2 days as well, and so forth and so on with 2 guys and And that's how you just start chewing it apart and seeing what you really think, and leave plenty of time on the front end and back end. Front end for mobilization and just getting set up and getting on a job, because somebody's got to pay for that. You can't eat that. That's not the deal. And on demob, which is pulling and cleaning up, finishing strong, as Mulder and Swihart say all the time, like Delaware, Ohio, what's up? So finishing strong, right? So making sure the site's cleaned up and the lawn's remediated, and talking to the client about who does all the remediation work or how much you're going to remediate and just all that stuff. So that's just how you start tearing them apart. And sometimes your pricing is way wrong, and because your man hours are way off, or maybe you're realistic and a client can't do that. That's tough. But and then try to reach out here on Instagram of guys that have done walls that size and get a more personal conversation with them. It's tough to understand know someone's skill set of how effective they are with an excavator and how well they know to place dirt and move things and all that. But recurring revenue commands the highest resale value. By the way, that's a great point, Ditch Itch. Thank you, sir. New studio, Outdoor Project Podcast. Yeah, it's a wonderful place. We love it. So
the person was referring to our crews. How will we grow if our crews are only working 40 hours?
Well, you add people and machinery to make up for it. So,
and the cool thing about it is our crews come back every year because we're not working them 60-hour weeks.
Yeah. So that's the workload they want. We have guys that want to clock more hours, and that's what we let them do. And we have guys that want just this or this, and we don't burn them out, and we don't grind them into the ground.
Prime says equipment to employee ratio 15-1.
Yeah. But really, yeah, I just thought that was funny. But I mean, for real, I mean, that's what you want. You want machinery. You want more machines than people, I believe, at the end of the day. The machines still have value when they leave. When people leave, that's it. They're gone. The value's gone. When machines are there, machines still sitting in the shop, and you can get your money out of it still. So
you can always train someone else to run the machine.
Real people, real time, and good equipment. Treating your employees.
I'm sorry. Right.
Okay. Well, I was like, my eyes aren't that bad. It says trying. Yeah, treating. I'm just bad at the interpretation there. But yeah, exactly. Do you know your CAC? We do not. I wish I did, but I really don't. I was thinking about that with that podcast I was listening to this morning, our customer acquisition cost. I really don't know, because I think the thing that would be tough to quantify with that would be, I have put in so much time over the years. I bet you our customer acquisition cost by the dollars is actually incredibly low. It's probably awesome. But because we don't spend a lot of money on advertising, I put a lot of time, I've got a lot of time equity into building relationships. I've been going to 4-H meetings and county engineering meetings and just Chamber of Commerce meet. I've invested so much freaking personal time in this daggone business.
And the other part of that, you attended for 10 years probably a networking meeting every Thursday morning.
Yeah. And so like I've invested a ton of time equity into building a company up that has then turned into tons of recurring revenue. Or I would almost
But
I got a text here of some ladies here that spend $2,000-3,000 with us a year on just some maintenance stuff of like drainage and things. Like it's hard to qualify there. Somebody that's more versed in CAC, I'd love to have him on as a podcast guest. That'd be fun. And maybe Ditch Itch, you're the guy for it. I don't know.
but when we were
I
starting
don't want
out,
to have him on a show forever. Anyways, he's got a really interesting business model. They treat poison ivy. That's what they do.
but when we were starting out, his time was the easiest way to grow the company. Because we didn't need him to be in the field all the time. We just needed to grow
No
and rebuild the
kids,
company.
you know.
Yeah.
No kids, smaller company.
Someone's here from the Dominican Republic.
No podcast, no social, you know, no Hardscape Academy. RevenueBuddy.com. That's fun. We'll check that out.
I'm starting to build policies, processes, systems, and SOPs. Where would you recommend starting in that process?
Check out just the most recent episode of the Kid Contractor Podcast where Britt and I talked for 20 minutes about setting policy of who is going to clean this place. That's how we look at it. So that might be a good reference there, resource there.
I do a lot in the office, and I wanted at some point
landscape daddy, finally a guru in the room.
I wanted someone to be able to take over my position at some point, or if I'm sick or something happens, I need that to be able to just be kind of turnkey. So what I started doing is I have a book, and I just wrote down what I did every step of payroll and what I did for every step of invoicing. And slowly, if you do that for everything that you want an SOP for and a policy for, you will build your book of policies. It takes time, but whenever you're sitting down to do a new task, just write down the steps and then put it in a folder and then have someone clean it up and make it look pretty later on. But that's what we've done for writing SOPs. And it's the easiest way to do it if you do it yourself.
Yeah, the only thing we need to fix is like password situations, because if Britt dies or something or gets
I have a password book.
I don't even know where that is, folks. So
well, you'll find it once I die.
Okay, where are we at? We getting caught up here.
Okay. Someone earlier said when we were talking about the news thing and people worrying about the economy, they said turn off your news and work on your company. Which is a point that you had when the train derailment thing happened in Ohio. You know, we were talking about it, and Caleb was just all kind of like out of the blue. He's like, it doesn't change that the mortgage is due next week. It doesn't change that I have 10 phone calls on my desk. I don't have time to worry about that right now. And
there's a line there, of course.
There's a line there, of course.
Of civic duty and all that too, of course, right?
But just sitting there talking about what could happen, what not happen, was not doing us any favors at the moment. We needed to focus on the task at hand, and we could talk about the train derailment over dinner.
Still got to go out next week.
Someone asked if we know Property Works.
Don't think so, by the way.
Okay.
Flat tracks, hey.
What are some things you expected?
Blake.
What are some things you expected the shop to help with, but it has not helped?
Yeah, I saw that question. That's a good question there, Mike Bletz out of Hardscape.
Pulling up a picture?
No, I'm going to do something else here. That's an interesting question, and I'd have to think about that a little bit more, because I don't know what is something we thought it would help with that has not yet. If I could be very blunt, I thought employee morale would be better. To be totally open, I am really disappointed, actually. I'll be very open in that right now. We thought employee morale would be better, and it's seemingly unchanged. And it's hard to say, but it's the truth.
Some things are better, but it's not like...
That's the one thing I could cite right out the gate.
I'm talking about for the employees. Like, some morale improved, but...
In some little ways, yeah. But overall, it's not the morale boost I thought it would be. And I was incredibly naive in that, apparently. So, which is the thing with, like, I fell into business owner syndrome there. Even though I want the company as ours and I want the guys to have buy-in like it's theirs, which I believe they do, it's still, this has been my baby, and no one's going to love your baby like you love your baby, right? And so I was kind of naive there, thinking like everyone would be as excited about the building as I am, and that hasn't been the case. So that's been a little hard to accept, maybe, or just kind of really realize that I was so naive to think such a thing. Here's what I've been looking for. So anyways, in that moment of openness,
My name's Blake.
my name's Blake.
Blake. What?
So for Blake Albertson out there, I've been looking for that for a minute. Blake, what? Landscape Daddy Guru. Did my invite to be on the Kid Contractor podcast? I'd love to have you on. Actually, that would be awesome, Chad.
I'll send you the link.
Dude, I would love to have you on. I think it'd be so fun. Okay, someone Horn
But
Construction's mentioning. Okay,
Oh, yes.
back on YouTube. We're live on YouTube also, but
Yeah.
big jobs may be fewer. They may be fewer. Here's the thing, I think, with that, like, the ultra wealthy, whatever, they're always going to have funds to spend, right? And they're always going to be investing. And frankly, they see down economies as the time to invest because they know contractors are on sale. They know materials are on sale, essentially. And so again, that's why you need to be as firm as you can be and not over leverage yourself and all that kind of stuff to where you're desperate to sell work. And know your numbers and all that crap. But like there's
Well, I was talking. Sorry.
even like the worst recession, even a recession of 15%, which is bad, by the way. I don't even think 2006 was that bad in most GDP. And I'm speaking out of my league a little bit there, but you might see a 10% drop in sales. All right, just make sure you're paying attention to your numbers, and
It also depends on who your clients are. So
who your clients are, the region of your country,
to,
of where you're at. Some
like I was talking to one of our sales reps and about this, and if you take a look at your customer list, and I've said this before somewhere, but if you take a look at your customer list and think about who you service, typically for us, we usually service people that are anywhere from 50 to 70, empty nesters, just want to do something nice for their home. They typically pay cash. They usually don't finance the project. Those people are still going to have money if the economy crashes. So I'm not, maybe naively, I'm not super concerned about that thing. If our customer was solely built on new builds and young people who are
blue collar workers,
think about who's hurt the most in the recession or in a down economy
or inflationary periods.
Who is that? If that is your client, then yeah, you might need to start thinking and worrying pretty hard. But if that's not your clientele and that's not what you focus on, then I'm not gonna say
worry's
you're okay.
Not the right word, but react and be hunting a clientele base that's not so economically. But I mean, that's hard. It's easy for us to say, right? Like, been here a long time. Hey, you're skipping over a bunch of stuff.
No, I went backwards.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, but I think what you'll see is probably still big jobs happening, but I think you're going to see big jobs scale back. So people that they want to cram more into like a 6-figure project, let's say. So we're going to do maybe less patio space, but still have the hot tub, still have the pool, all that stuff. It's just going to be more, it's going to be a very European, I think history is going to kind of come into that, is like, you'll just see more crammed into, people are just going to be looking more value. And so we're not going to have such sprawling, expansive patios. They might be drawn in a little bit, but still all the features, because still the psyche is there of like, nobody wants to do without. So we're still going to do all the big stuff, just not like that. So not our finest hour podcast.
Who runs that page?
Not familiar. Not familiar with that one. I'll have to check that out.
That must be paper.
I think it's Platts actually runs that one.
He's on here.
He can be 2 different places. He's logged in 2 different places. Okay. Silly. Don't you know anything about the internet? And let's see here. So what I think you'll see is more of that going on. Someone had mentioned, maybe it was Platts actually on How to Hardscape podcast. Maybe I don't remember, but he was mentioning what you might see is a lot of boomers are retiring and passing on, and they're going to be leaving a lot of money to the younger generation, and you're going to see a lot of investment. I say investment, foolish spending possibly also, and that with the baby boomer generation, it's sitting on a lot of cash, frankly, and selling assets in their estates, and then meanwhile the kids are living in tiny homes and much radically different style of living. You might see that come through in ways in the trades more. So I thought it was an interesting perspective. Landscape Daddy, they're everywhere all the time. Last year they had a backlog. Well, Horn, I mean, dude, I don't want to tell you, it is going to be different this year. I mean, you cannot pay as
every
a
year is
culture
different.
1,000. And by the way, you're coming off of two of the most or three most insane years of business forever. And by the way, that's on the back of 10 years prior to that. There was nothing but boom economy. That crap has got to calm down someday. I mean, it's just not sustainable forever. So it shouldn't really be a shock, and it really shouldn't be something to be worried about. This has been slated to happen for years. It just got prolonged because of all the crazy financial stuff. So, buckle up, sell some stuff, get in a good position cash wise, and get ready to do it. I mean, that's just set your sights a little lower. I mean, if that makes you feel better, and don't. I mean, I just don't want to tell you the party doesn't last forever. Contrary to what Robert Earl Keen says, the road does go on forever, but the party will end eventually.
One of the, I guess it puts my mind at ease is you throw out Element software. We know what we have to make a year to pay all the bills and make sure that we're good. So maybe to make you feel better about whatever the uncertain economy is, you should figure out what your overhead is for the year and set a goal monthly that we have to do this to stay alive. And then you at least have a smaller goal than maybe your higher sales goal.
The expand or die thing, I wonder, I've been wanting to talk to some people about that. It's kind of like the rich versus wealthy. What is rich? What is wealth? And if you're not growing, you're dying. I still don't know that I exactly agree with that mantra.
Like growing your business?
Well, it generally is what they mean by it. If you're not growing, you're dying. Now, other people unpack that and say, well, it doesn't have to be top line. It could be spiritual growth, mental growth, financial growth, familial or family growth, whatever. Like, you've got to be growing in one way or another, which I would agree with that. I think you absolutely do. If you're going to go anywhere positive in life, anyways. But I don't know that the business always has to be growing. I just don't know. I don't disagree with that mindset. I don't know. Plateauing is not necessarily good. Unbridled growth is also dangerous, I think, sometimes, if it's not.
But just because your sales plateau doesn't mean that you're not growing as a company either.
Right, because you might get a chance to
be growing your bottom line instead. You could be becoming more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, top line growth doesn't mean anything. Keep it small and keep it all. Yeah, I mean, that's always the juggle, right? It's like you can be really profitable as a small owner-operator company.
But you could be really profitable as a large company.
You absolutely can. You've got to go the Mark Bradley route of really crushing and understanding numbers.
Which is a conversation I had with him at dinner one time. It was like, when you grow because I know what we can make doing $1 million in sales. And I was like, what happens when you go to $2.5 million? Everyone says that jump is really hard. And he's like, it's all the same. He's like, you adjust your numbers and you make the profit that you want to. You decide what your profit is and you do what you need to get there. Just because you grow $1.5 million in sales doesn't mean that you lose profit over it. Why would anyone do that?
Well, what the idea is you grow. If I heard a truck door, I think we've got some guests here, but I know who it is. It's cool. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. You don't need to go. You're good. I know who it is.
It's a white truck.
It's those. Anyways, why people will do that, Britt? It's kind of like what we're doing in a couple avenues of like you scale up the business as fast as you can, get that customer base, get that workload going, and then you work on refining the profit, right? Then you work on like dialing in the profit. Once you build up that workload, then you start to ratchet down. It's like when you're starting a business, you take on every job you can. You take on gutter cleaning and like anything you can do to pay the bills, right? And then you refine the business as it goes. You just need income coming in that hopefully you're making some money on. If you're paying attention, then you're making money. But I mean, that's the idea, right? And so that's why you would scale up at low profit margins to then refine once you hit stride, let's say, or whatever you hit that revenue peak or whatever.
Real quick, someone asked, what compactor would you recommend starting out?
Good question. Probably just a little forward plate compactor, depending on your budget. Just a little Whacker 1550 or our friends at Bartell. We love Bartell plate compactor. We got a little 1570 is a great. A 2570 is a better model if you can. It's reversible. It's got enough centrifugal compaction.
Buy the big one. Make sure you can move it.
That's the thing with that too. You got to be able to get that thing up and down out of the truck. So
before you had past years of records to pull from, how did you come up with an educated materials number for your budget?
Well, fortunately, when we started to LMN, we did have past years to go off of. Generally,
would you figure out a percentage of like what materials usually like? Would you? I don't know. Go ahead if you know how.
well, before we had past year's records
So in my head,
an
I
educated
would.
materials number.
In my head, I would build out a paver budget or for a paver patio, and I would see what the material percentage is, maybe for a couple projects, and then put that in percentage of sales.
Yeah,
Would that work?
So if he's building a budget through Element or Synced Up or whoever, like, and you haven't done a lot of hardscaping, but you can kind of project, okay, I think I'm going to do 50K worth, or I'm going to set a goal of doing 50K a year in hardscaping starting out, or 100K. You can about bet that 30% of that is going to be material cost. Pretty safely, I would say, maybe at the most 50%. I hope not. But based off your pricing models or whatever. And then you kind of say, I anticipate to have, 20 or 30K. And you can kind of look back on, and John, because I kind of know about a little bit about what you're doing. You know how you price things out. So you can look at a couple little hardscape jobs or big hardscape jobs you've done and look at what you had in that material wise versus what your gross sale was. And then you can kind of begin to work that backwards, right? So for easy numbers, $10,000 job, and you had 4K in materials, well, there's a 40% material budget, right? And then the rest, and then a percentage of that was equipment and whatever, and then another percentage of that was overhead, and then leaves you with somewhere between hopefully 10 and 30% net profit, and then labor in there too, and then somewhere between 10 and 30% true net profit, hopefully.
And if you're using Element, you shouldn't totally go off of these, but they do have benchmarks for industry averages in there. That you
which doesn't always.
Don't go off of it. I'm just saying.
I want to hammer that down because it'll give you industry standard profits, and there's ways to get in there and tweak the numbers and mess with it, so that you can kind of get the profit margins you're looking for. So you got to kind of mess with the numbers sometimes.
Warren says they did 600K with 3 people.
Awesome, that's great. That's a great. Now, did you work hopefully under 60 hours? I hope. Otherwise, that's a great jobbers in the building. Here we go. But 600 between 3 people is wonderful. Great job. That's awesome. Hopefully you didn't work 90 hours a week for it necessarily, unless you're a new business. I understand it. Would I ever buy a little Chinese excavator? I mean, I have a Japanese excavator right now. It just happens to say Caterpillar on it. So, I mean, are we going to be honest with ourselves, or Kabelco, Komatsu, Caterpillar, all made overseas, folks. So, yeah. So I've got nothing against. I mean, Riley Marvin just bought all these imitation ditch witches from China. I think he bought like a whole crate, a whole shipping container of them.
Oh,
like literally, he bought a shipping container, like these ditch witch, like 1050 looking machines. I mean, it's blatant copyright infringement and intellectual theft. I mean, to me, it looks like on behalf of the Chinese, and it's a crime, I believe. But I'm not an attorney. I don't know. So it's up to them. Don't sue me, Chinese ditch witch imitator. But he bought a whole crate of them. And Riley's doing 2 or 3, 4, 5 million, I don't know, a year. Really cool. We got some cool podcasts with him and YouTube video. Check it out. Riley Marvin, Alpha Landscapes, Iowa. Check him out there. But we work less than 35. Well, hell, Horn, what are you even worried about? You should be sitting on a whole mountain of money, buddy. Good job. That's awesome. Good for you.
I am a hardscaper, says.
But he bought all those extra machines for parts for the other ones if they all break. So he bought a whole bunch of them, so he had parts.
Oh.
Riley's no dummy. He's a smart kid.
Okay. I don't budget material, or I'm a hardscaper, says I don't budget materials. I just assign them to projects. Do you know why Element has you do a material budget besides nailing down markups based on your overhead?
Yeah, I think that comes down to like whether or not you're doing multiple overhead recovery or single, or whatever the hybrid would be, styles of overhead. So we do multiple overhead recovery. So based off of what we're anticipating to spend on budget, that dictates how much markup it puts on materials. If we just did single overhead recovery, which sounds like kind of, Mike, what you're doing there, it would be based more on like just the labor or the hours worked or whatever. So a single source gets all the markup. And then that would be a question mark, Bradley. I'm not smart enough to answer that, but that's the direction I would go with it as to why. So.
Caleb, glad to see you're still kicking. After listening to yesterday's podcast, I thought Brittany was going to off you in your sleep.
By the way, people
for
really
canceling Guru
nobody
event.
gets your humor, and so or our humor, and so everybody thinks you were really mean to me. People, I got a lot of messages like, "Man, Brittany was really tearing you up." And I'm like, I deal with it every day, folks. Some heroes don't wear capes. That's all I can say.
We're all
Gotta have
lucky
broad
he's still
shoulders
here.
to deal with a woman mean like her. She's pretty, but she's meaner than a snake. But anyways, I cut you off.
He's still here, guys. No worries.
I ain't going nowhere, as the band Rancid said. Last one to die.
I am Eric on YouTube is number 260 on a waiting list for a Ditch Witch SK800.
That's
in
nuts.
SoCal.
It's crazy.
You'd think they like build another plant. Like if you have.
Well, that is a.
There's waiting list galore.
You know what it takes to build a plant, though.
No,
Don't
I
say
have no
such
idea.
silly things. That's absurd.
Okay.
That's like a 3-year commitment.
Okay.
My goodness, that's wild. It's not like you just go and build stuff. Silly.
Do you landscapers business classes for landscapes?
Do you landscaper? I hear glandscaper. I think of like pituitary gland or something.
Okay,
So I have
that's
a funny.
probably
Bo
not.
actually has a very funny. So business classes for landscapers. We are going to have some horticultural trainings for from the Hardscape Academy for that. We were supposed to get them out 2 years ago, never did. We need to wrap this thing up here in a few minutes, folks. So bear with us. But
how do you charge for equipment? How do you recover that overhead?
the quick and dirty way is to call your rental yards and see what the rental rates are for equipment. Say a skid steer is $280 a day. Well, that's what you need to be recovering your thing is. Now, I'll break it down. If I know the machine's going to sit there for a month, I will break it down into the weekly or monthly rates. But long story short, if it's going to that job site for a day or two, that's your rental rate. I mean, that's what those companies have it figured out. They know how much that machine goes out a year. And they know what so that'll help you start to figure out what you need and how you need to recover the costs on your machines per day that they're sitting on a job. So good question.
Okay. Thank you up to date.
Awesome. Yeah, the waiting list for a ditch witch, that's insanity. That's just not 260th on a list. I mean,
I wonder how many they make a day.
What?
I wonder how many are like released a day.
Probably not
So like
anywhere near a fraction of that amount. Maybe 10 come off the line a day, I bet.
Jason Creel just said that Kohler makes how many engines a day? 2,400
a day. Kohler engines.
Okay,
out of
so
their
like
Mississippi plant.
how many ditch witches are made?
I bet you maybe a dozen come off the line a day.
I bet not.
Franklin
I bet more like
Equipment
4.
Rentals. There's no way. Or Franklin Equipment Sales. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say like Franklin Equipment here in Columbus, Ohio, was sold out to United Rentals. One last thing on that. Oh, I think the equipment shortage list, by the way, folks, and to Horn's comment that we've been having back and forth, there are going to be some people that get caught bad with their pants down, or just decide, you know what, the economy's down a little bit. I don't want to buy this machine I've committed to, and I'm on the list. And you're going to see those. I think by summer, you're going to see those lists shrink a bunch. Now, that being said, here's the one thing in the positive shining light I see here. For the folks that are willing to work these days, especially more than ever, because it's not quite the same as it was in the 30s or the 50s where people were just inclined to do physical work. The people that are willing to do the physical work, clean the gutters on a ladder, sweep the streets, put down the brick, place the concrete, finish the drywall, whatever, there is going to be work for you, I do believe. I don't think that the physical amount of work, you're going to see that. You may see demand overall decrease a little, but the actual need for people to get the physical work done, especially again with the baby boomer generation being the primary residents in the country at the moment are coming up.
A lot of them they don't know how to do any of that.
And there's
I have a cousin who doesn't even know how to mow the grass.
Yeah, I mean, and so the people who are willing to physically work are still going to do pretty well, I think, and are going to have work. I'm not super worried about that. So I think overall 2023, I think is really still going to be a great year. 2024 is where it really might catch up with us. And I started on this rant earlier, but like, there's no way we get away with all the price increases that we've had over the last year due to inflation, which is, again, due to monetary policy, folks. And that happened back in 2020. So you point fingers at the current administration all you want. That happened 3 years ago, folks. Those gears were set in motion back then. The printing press, when you print that much money, in 1 year. That's why you see the inflation the way you see it now. The shortages are another thing, which also will drive up prices, absolutely. But let's be fair, and I'm diehard libertarian, folks, so you can guess which side I lean more towards. But let's be fair. But where was I even going with that? Doggone it, I've lost that point twice, but I guess it's not that pertinent. Long story short, hell, that makes me so mad. I get fired up on a couple things and I lose it. But the big deal is, at the end of the day, there's going to be work out there. I think what you'll see, that's what I was getting at, is, but you can't have $5 a gallon gasoline and rob the economy of that much purchasing power, let alone inflation, but also just pull an extra, $7-8 out of every person's pocket every time they fill up the tank, and it keeps them from buying a candy bar or, whatever. That will catch up with us. And I think we'll see that more slowed down towards, the funny thing I was listening to more towards, I think, the end of the year, more towards like later in the year. But the funny thing about all that stuff is the All In podcast I was listening to, and I've been listening to a lot lately. The companies that understand this stuff, and the Warren Buffetts, the world, and all that, they're looking forward to a downturn, because it means real estate's going to go down in value, which is always the time to buy. Equipment's going to go down. Labor's going to be cheaper. All that. They were mentioning or hinted around it, like these companies are already looking at the rebound mid or early 2024 and mid 2024. They're looking at the rebound already and thinking, how can we capitalize on that off of cheaper? And that's the time to invest. They're going to give it 6 months to a year, sink a bunch of money in the market or wherever, and then ride the wave up. And this is the way it's been for, if you watch and listen to anyone that's been in investing at all. This isn't investing advice, but that's where you see those people that make the killer money. Like when the economy's down, the stock market's down, that's the best time to invest. It's the hardest for most folks, but that's when you really need pumping the money. Folks, it's 11 o'clock. We got to go. Any other questions, Britt, that we need to jump on here? I hope I don't have to eat too much crow down the way.
We work in the field sometimes.
Yep, a little bit, not a lot.
How did you come up with your labor capacity for the year?
Based off just past years, we just know what we've done. Again,
we know what each guy's capable of producing on average.
Yeah, and we know those guys are going to work 1,500 to 2,000 hours a year, and we've got 3 guys, so we know.
And when you use the software to track all that stuff, you can print off a report literally every year and compare it based on your sales, and then you figure out what the percentages you need to make whatever sales you're going for.
$2,400 a day for a daily rate sound in the ballpark. For 3-man crew, truck, trailer, skid steer, 3-man crew. I mean, it's 24 man hours. It's $100 a man hour. No, I mean, I think you ought to be achieving to be just $100 a man hour for your labor, plus your truck, plus your trailer, plus your skid steer. So probably 3,500.
Depending on your market.
And what you're doing. If you're rural Southern Ohio or rural Alabama or West Texas where there's nobody, that may be right for you. I don't know. New York, that's a deal. California, that's a freaking steal. Depends on your region. So that's a big part of it, what the cost of living is in your area. But I mean, I think we're at a minimum about $3,500 a day now.
Depends on what you're doing also.
Absolutely. Materials involved. Yeah, that's a wide array. So good question there at the end. And thanks for being open and sharing numbers. I appreciate that. But 2,400 still, I mean, if you can keep that going, 300 days a year, that's not too bad. But just be paying attention to your costs. But you got to pump that out consistently. It's
an okay number if you're making money at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I would really investigate making sure you're recovering your equipment, trailer, tires, overhead, brakes, all that stuff.
Okay.
That adds up.
We'll be back.
We got to jump.
We'll be back next week. And then the week after that, we're going to go live from ConExpo in Vegas. So we'll see how that goes. But
1 million in sales. Cool.
Live from ConExpo.
Live from ConEx next week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks from now. Okay, cool. Awesome. That'd be a lot of fun. We'll catch you later, folks. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Yeehaw.